The 2 a.m. confirmation that changed everything. At exactly 2 a.m., a quiet but decisive shift took place in Washington. Without a press conference, without cameras, and without advance notice, the White House confirmed that President Trump had signed off on a revised structure for the long-discussed $2,000 tariff dividend. What had been speculation for weeks suddenly became policy, and for millions of Americans, especially seniors living on fixed incomes, this moment carries far more weight than the headlines suggest. Late-night decisions like this are rarely about publicity. They are about execution. According to internal Treasury notifications, the approval followed a final review of updated economic data. Once that review was complete, the program moved immediately from discussion into action. In simple terms, the framework is no longer being debated, it is now being implemented. This confirmation did not arrive with fanfare because it didn't need to. By the time the information surfaced publicly, the internal decision-making process had already concluded. That's an important signal. When confirmation comes quietly, it usually means the machinery is already moving. For seniors, especially those over 60 who rely on Social Security, SSI, or ssdi, this timing matters. Programs that are confirmed internally before public rollout often move faster and face fewer political obstacles. And unlike traditional stimulus checks, this payment does not rely on new legislation. The funds already exist, collected through tariff revenue, giving the Treasury authority to proceed without waiting on Congress. This is why the 2 a.m. confirmation is so significant. It wasn't a promise for the future, it was a green light. And as we'll explore in the next section, the way this program was quietly adjusted behind the scenes has placed seniors much closer to the front of the line than anyone expected. Why this payment is different from past stimulus checks. To understand why this update matters so much, especially for seniors, we need to look at how this $2,000 tariff dividend works and why it is fundamentally different from the stimulus checks many Americans remember from the past. Traditional stimulus payments usually require Congress to pass new legislation. That process can take months and often becomes tangled in political negotiations. Funding must be approved, rules debated, and timelines negotiated before any money is released. For retirees living on fixed incomes, that delay can be painful and uncertain. This program works differently. The $2,000 tariff dividend is funded by revenue that has already been collected through import tariffs. These funds are already sitting with the Treasury. Because of that, once eligibility rules are finalized, Treasury has the authority to move forward without waiting for a new bill or a lengthy congressional process. That structural difference changes everything. It means fewer hurdles, fewer delays, and a faster path from approval to action. For seniors, speed matters. Rising grocery prices, higher utility bills, rent increases, and medical costs do not wait for political timelines. Another key difference is verification. Many retirees already have their income and benefit information on file with the Social Security Administration and the IRS. That makes eligibility easier to confirm compared to working households with fluctuating wages or multiple income sources. Treasury systems can verify seniors more efficiently, which reduces processing delays. This is one reason this program has drawn quiet attention inside government agencies. Officials understand that relief programs built on existing data move faster and create less confusion, especially for older Americans who may struggle with complex application processes. So, while this payment may look similar to past stimulus checks on the surface, the structure underneath tells a very different story. And as we'll see next, that structure was quietly adjusted in a way that places seniors, particularly low-income retirees, in a much stronger position than before. Why seniors suddenly moved to the front of the line. What surprised many officials was not the size of the $2,000 payment, but how quickly seniors became a central focus of the program. The shift happened quietly, but the reasoning behind it was unmistakable once updated data was reviewed. Late-night Treasury reports showed that older Americans, especially those living on fixed incomes, are experiencing financial strain at levels far higher than previously estimated. Rising food prices, increasing utility bills, higher rent, and growing medical costs have been eating away at monthly budgets with no room for adjustment. Unlike working households, retirees cannot increase their income when prices rise. That reality forced a recalibration. Internal Treasury language began emphasizing limited purchasing power and income rigidity. Those terms matter. They describe households that feel inflation immediately and intensely. Seniors, particularly those relying on Social Security, SSI, or ssdi, fit that profile almost perfectly. As a result, the structure of the program was quietly adjusted. Seniors were no longer grouped broadly with the general population. Instead, they were recognized as a distinct category with specific vulnerabilities. This did not change the size of the payment, but it changed something just as important: priority. Being moved closer to the front of the line affects how quickly eligibility is reviewed, how much verification is required, and how soon approvals can happen once distribution begins. Treasury systems are designed to process cases that are easier to verify and show higher financial sensitivity first. Many seniors meet both conditions. This shift represents more than administrative reshuffling. It reflects a growing acknowledgement inside government that fixed-income households are being hit hardest by inflation, even when broader economic indicators look stable. And this is why this update feels different. It is not just about money, it is about recognition. In the next section, we'll explore the specific economic data that triggered this sudden change and why officials felt compelled to act almost overnight. The economic data that forced an overnight decision. The question many seniors are asking right now is simple: why did this shift happen so suddenly? Why were low-income retirees moved into priority status almost overnight, without public warning or advance notice? The answer lies in a series of updated economic reports that reached Treasury officials just days before the 2 a.m. confirmation. These reports revealed a sharp acceleration in financial strain among older Americans, especially those receiving lower monthly Social Security benefits. According to internal findings, seniors living on roughly $1,300 a month or less were cutting back on essentials at a faster rate than any other group. Rent, food, utilities, and medical expenses were consuming a growing share of income, leaving little room for unexpected costs. For those receiving closer to $1,100 a month, the pressure was even more severe. What made this data impossible to ignore was the lack of flexibility. Working households may eventually offset rising prices through higher wages or additional hours. Seniors do not have that option. When costs rise, the impact is immediate and permanent. One advisor involved in the review summarized the concern plainly: if tariff revenue is being returned to the public, households with the least ability to absorb higher prices should not be last in line. That principle became the turning point. Once this reality was reflected clearly in the numbers, the review process was fast-tracked. Officials did not expand the program. Instead, they redirected it toward those most financially exposed. Seniors quickly rose to the top of that list. This explains why the decision came late at night and without ceremony. By the time the confirmation surfaced publicly, the internal analysis was complete and the revised structure was already approved. Quiet decisions like this often signal that action is already underway. In the next section, we'll explain why there was no early announcement and how federal systems were adjusted behind the scenes to support this new priority structure. Why there was no early public announcement. One detail that stands out to many seniors is how quietly this decision surfaced. There was no early press release, no advance warning, and no public explanation until after the approval was already in place. That silence was not accidental. According to officials familiar with the process, Treasury deliberately avoided public announcements while eligibility models were being adjusted behind the scenes. Revising a federal payment program that relies on IRS and Social Security data requires precision. Any confusion during that phase could have caused errors, delays, or misinformation, especially for seniors who depend on accurate communication. Another reason for the silence was stability. Once news of a potential payment spreads, public pressure and speculation increase immediately. Officials wanted to ensure that the revised structure was fully approved, aligned across federal systems, and ready to move forward before information reached the public. By the time confirmation appeared, the internal work was already complete. This approach may feel abrupt, but it often signals seriousness. Quiet confirmations usually indicate that decisions are no longer tentative. They are operational. Systems are being updated, data is being aligned, and timelines are being prepared. For seniors, this matters because it reduces the risk of sudden rule changes later. When a program is announced before systems are ready, adjustments often follow. In this case, the adjustment came first. The announcement came second. It's also important to understand that this silence was meant to protect older Americans from confusion and scams. Early, incomplete information can create openings for misinformation. By waiting until the structure was finalized, officials limited that risk. So while the lack of warning may feel unsettling, it actually reflects a program that is already moving forward with clarity and direction. In the next section, we'll break down how this program differs structurally from traditional stimulus efforts and why that difference matters so much for payment speed and simplicity. How this program moves faster than traditional stimulus. One of the most important reasons this tariff dividend is moving quickly comes down to structure. Unlike traditional stimulus programs, this payment does not begin with Congress. It begins with the Treasury, and that difference changes the entire timeline. Traditional stimulus checks require multiple steps before any money can move. Congress must debate and pass legislation, funding must be authorized, and distribution rules must be negotiated. Each step introduces delays. For seniors living on fixed incomes, those delays can mean months of uncertainty. The tariff dividend works differently because the funds already exist. The revenue was collected through import tariffs long before any payment was announced. That allows Treasury to focus on execution rather than approval. Once eligibility categories are finalized, the agency can proceed without waiting for a new law. Another factor speeding up this program is data readiness. Treasury relies heavily on existing federal records, particularly from the Social Security Administration and the IRS. Most retirees already have stable, well-documented income profiles on file. That makes verification faster and reduces the need for additional paperwork. This efficiency is especially important for older Americans who may find application-heavy processes stressful or confusing. By using existing data, Treasury minimizes disruption and keeps the process largely hands-off for seniors. Behind the scenes, officials adjusted how vulnerability is measured. Instead of focusing only on income size, they emphasized income stability and purchasing power. Fixed-income households score higher under this model because their budgets do not adjust when prices rise. Seniors benefited immediately from this recalibration. The result is a program designed to move quietly but efficiently. Reviews happen sooner. Verification happens faster. And once distribution begins, fewer hurdles remain. In the next section, we'll explain the new tier system Treasury introduced and why many low-income seniors were placed into one of the highest priority tiers for early review. The new three-tier priority system explained. After the late-night approval, the most significant change did not involve the size of the $2,000 payment. It involved how households are reviewed and approved. Treasury quietly rebuilt the program into a three-tier priority system designed to reflect financial vulnerability more accurately. Under the original structure, priority was expected to focus mainly on working households within certain income ranges. But once updated data was reviewed, that assumption no longer held. The revised system places greater weight on income stability and purchasing power, not just total earnings. The highest priority tier now includes households that are most exposed to rising prices and least able to adjust. Seniors who rely primarily on Social Security, SSI, or ssdi fall directly into this category. Fixed income is treated as a risk factor because it does not respond to inflation. When costs rise, the impact is immediate. Being placed in a higher tier affects more than eligibility. It determines how quickly your case is reviewed, how much verification is required, and how soon your payment can move forward once distribution begins. Cases in the top tier are reviewed first and are often processed more efficiently. For many seniors, this placement is an advantage. Their benefit records are consistent, already documented, and easy to verify. That combination allows Treasury systems to move faster without additional questions or delays. Lower tiers still include millions of eligible households, but their reviews may happen later as the system prioritizes based on vulnerability rather than assumptions about income flexibility. This new structure explains why many retirees are suddenly seeing their status described differently than just days ago. The system did not change who deserves help, it changed how need is measured. In the next section, we'll take a closer look at the specific income thresholds guiding this priority system and what they mean for individual seniors. In the next section, we'll address a critical concern many seniors have right now. Do you need to apply to receive this $2,000 payment, or will it happen automatically? Do you need to apply, or will it happen automatically? One of the biggest concerns seniors have right now is whether they need to do anything to receive this $2,000 tariff dividend. The short answer for most retirees is no. Under the updated Treasury guidance, eligibility reviews are being handled automatically using information that already exists within federal systems. That includes records from the Social Security Administration and the IRS. If your primary income comes from Social Security, SSI, or ssdi, your identity, benefit history, and payment information are already on file. This means many seniors will not need to fill out forms, submit applications, or take extra steps. The process is designed to be as hands-off as possible, reducing confusion and stress for older Americans. However, there are a few situations where action may be required. If you have recently moved, changed your mailing address, switched banks, or updated your direct deposit information, Treasury may need confirmation that your records are current. In those cases, you may receive a notice through your IRS online account or your My Social Security portal. It is important to take these messages seriously. They are part of final verification, and responding promptly helps keep your case in the priority review lane. For seniors who do not typically file tax returns, there is additional reassurance. Not filing does not disqualify you. In fact, households that rely entirely on federal benefits are often easier to verify because their income sources are stable and consistent. Treasury has adjusted its process to rely more heavily on Social Security records to avoid delays for non-filers. One critical reminder: federal agencies will never call, text, or email asking for personal information related to this payment. Any such request should be treated as a scam. In the next section, we'll look at what seniors can realistically expect in terms of timing and when updates or confirmations may begin to appear. What to expect next and when money may move. As this program moves closer to distribution, the most common question seniors are asking is simple: when will anything actually happen? While Treasury has not released specific payment dates, the internal process gives us some helpful clues. The first step is eligibility confirmation. This happens quietly, using existing data from the Social Security Administration and the IRS. Seniors placed in the highest priority tier are reviewed earlier in the sequence, especially if their records are already verified and complete. Once eligibility is confirmed, payment information is finalized. Only after that step does the money move. This can feel slow from the outside, but it is standard for large federal distributions. Approval and payment are separate stages, and both must be completed before funds are released. Because low-income seniors were moved into the top tier, many retirees may see confirmation notices or account updates sooner than other groups, even if public announcements remain limited. Some seniors may notice changes in their online accounts before hearing anything through the mail. It's important to understand that early confirmation does not always mean immediate payment. Treasury processes payments in waves based on readiness and system capacity. Being near the front of the line improves timing, but it does not eliminate all waiting. The best advice right now is to be patient but attentive. Check your My Social Security and IRS accounts occasionally. Make sure your mailing address and direct deposit information are correct. Respond promptly if you receive a legitimate verification request. At the same time, avoid speculation. Quiet movement behind the scenes often comes before visible results. The lack of daily headlines does not mean nothing is happening. In the final section, we'll address one last critical concern: whether receiving this $2,000 payment could affect your Social Security, SSI, or ssdi benefits in any way. Will this payment affect your Social Security benefits? As news of this $2,000 tariff dividend spreads, one concern comes up again and again among seniors: will receiving this payment affect your Social Security, SSI, or ssdi benefits? According to guidance shared between Treasury officials and the Social Security Administration, the answer is no. This payment is not classified as earned income, unearned income, or a change to your benefit status. It is considered a rebate funded by tariff revenue, which places it outside the formulas used to calculate Social Security, SSI, or ssdi payments. In practical terms, this means the payment stands on its own. It does not reduce your monthly check. It does not trigger a review of your benefits, and it does not interfere with cost of living adjustments now or in the future. For SSI recipients, where income rules are especially strict, officials have clarified that this payment does not count as income for eligibility purposes. It is not treated like wages or ongoing support. That distinction is critical for seniors who depend on every dollar of their regular benefits. There is, however, one practical detail worth mentioning. While the payment itself does not affect benefits, Holding a large balance in your account for an extended period could matter for certain asset-based programs. That's why officials recommend using the funds for essential needs rather than letting them sit untouched indefinitely. Treasury has also emphasized that receiving this payment will not trigger audits or additional scrutiny. Eligibility reviews happen before approval, not after. Once your payment is issued, it does not reopen your benefit file or create new paperwork. As this program moves forward, the most important step for seniors is simple. Make sure your information is accurate and stay alert to official notices. Avoid scams, ignore unsolicited calls or messages, and rely only on secure federal portals or mailed communications. This update does not solve every financial challenge facing retirees, but it does represent something meaningful. A clear recognition that seniors living on fixed incomes deserve priority, clarity, and respect in real policy decisions.